Well, let's dig right into it, man. I mean,
Let's go.
yeah, I feel like people. This is one that people feel like this was debunked. This is old news, and it's like the story's not going away. It's not,
No.
it's really not, and there's something here. I mean, there's a very strong possibility that this could be a legitimate, extraterrestrial or just non-human intelligence of some sort, and so that's one of the options. I mean, there's a couple of options, right? There's the hoax option.
Yeah.
I think that, but I want to hear kind of maybe if you can just kind of summarize the whole situation for me, because I think people are really buzzing after that Jesse Michaels episode, but it's. It was a lot of information to take in, and he was
Yes.
he was kind of he
Yeah.
brought a lot of stuff in a really short period of time. So, if you could, man, I mean, just kind of summarize it for us, for the audience, and then we'll get right into it.
Well, it basically started in 2014. This Vaquero, which is basically a grave robber, by the name of Mario, which is a pseudonym, he made a discovery in around the site where historically there's always been grave robbings, and there's a whole market of ancient remains that are sold in the black market, and that's a whole mafia all in itself. So every time somebody discovered something in the underground, there was always these vaqueros who instantly went and looted the place, and they sold everything. And
Mm,
always there was everything that was found was always human in nature. Um, Different eras, but it was always technically human. And in 2014, this Mario guy discovered the site, which is in between the Palpa and the Nazca regions. When he discovered it, he realized that there was something really weird about these specimens. They're not mummies. They have all their insides, they have all their organs still. They're desiccated. They're desiccated corpses, technically. And when he found them, he realized that this was very different to what everybody found usually. So he started inquiring around the region to specialists. And the specialist that he found was French explorer Thierry Jamin, who was part of the Jesse Michaels documentary. And Thierry has been investigating the case since. When Thierry found out what this was about, he brought in his own professionals, and journalist Joyce Mantilla got involved in the case, who is Peruvian. He's local. And when they realized that they weren't being paid attention to as much as they wanted because this was a really important case, that's when Jaime Maussan got in the picture. And this was in 2017, give or take. Um, when Jaime got involved, there were several attempts by other ufologists from the Five Eyes countries. There was an attempt from Eric von Daniken, who is known in the UFO community. He wanted to investigate the case, but Eric sent his own people, not he didn't go himself, to investigate the case and to potentially even get rights to an exclusivity on the case. Thierry, according to what he told me, he denied that exclusivity, and that's when the debunking started, technically.
mm,
So there's a lot of people within the ufology community that are UFO researchers who are, in my opinion, are very irresponsible because uh, they are based on the first debunk, and that's all they pay attention to.
right.
So when scientists started like looking into the case after Jaime Maussan's hearing in 2023, that's when the case began getting way more interesting. And that's when every single scientist that arrived at the case saw the bodies in person, saw the tomographies and the x-rays. There's not a single one of them that has said these are fake. And I'm talking about specifically the M types, which are the ones that are kind of our size. But there are some really conflicting narratives going on there, specifically with the DNA, because there's people that think that the DNA is mostly human And there are people that think that DNA is hybrid. They think that it has DNA from different species, 30% of it. They claim that it's unknown, but it's not clear because you got really accomplished people on both sides claiming different things. So that's why Jesse decided to call the colossal people who are trying to get samples and trying to investigate the DNA specifically, where
I
they do
just
agree.
I just hooked up. I just made contact with the CEO at Colossal, Ben Lim, and I'm actually,
Yeah, Ben Lamb.
yeah, Lam, yeah, I'm actually most likely going to go up to Texas and get a tour of his facility and interview him and do an exclusive interview with him from his facility. So with that, this is possibly something that we can talk about
Oh, it is.
when I get up there. Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
let's pause there for a second because there's a lot there. So this DNA testing, it has been done by multiple people, multiple individuals on both sides, and they're presenting conflicting information.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
That's where I think there needs to be a lot more investigation. But what compelled me that the M types are real is the morphology, because based on the craniometry, based on the X-rays, based on the tomographies, on the 3D tomographies, these specimens seem to be morphologically coherent, and that's what the specialists say. Um, the thing is, there are some of these larger specimens that are human and that they were their feet were sewn off. They had 5 metatarsals and they sewn off 2 of them, but there are like only 2 of those that were like tampered with. The
Hmm.
rest, they are just as is. They are tridactyl in the hands and the feet.
And
And
do we know if
I
do
can't
we
tell you if this was made on purpose or as like a ritual kind of thing
right?
when they buried them, because it's possible, because the carbon dating on the tampered with specimens are also really old. So
Okay.
they buried them at the same time.
Okay.
The ones that I don't, and this is where we disagree with Jaime's team, the smaller bodies that Jaime presented, I am not convinced that those are real. And I can't vouch for those because there are many different data points that point towards them not being real. They are really old. And I think, and my hypothesis is that they were created and constructed in the ancient times as sort of like a ritual to the bigger bodies. And they were buried there also.
Hmm. Okay. So we think that they're all buried at roughly the same time, but in the same general location, discovered
Yeah.
by the same person, this grave robber guy.
Yes.
And we
Mario.
think, yep, and we think that there's a good chance that the smaller ones could be tampered with.
Yeah. And
But
this is controversial because there's people that are like the ones that are like dead set on them being alien, which I don't ascribe to. I've been attacked by a lot of these people. I've been called a disinformation agent. And look, man, I just want to get to the bottom of what these are.
right,
The larger ones, based on all the evidence and all the specialists that have looked at them, they are real. They
yeah,
seem to be real. So,
yeah,
but I don't know what they are. I don't know if they could be crypto-terrestrial. They could be an undiscovered type of hominid that has tridactyl features. But I definitely do not ascribe to the idea that they are extraterrestrial because there's simply not enough evidence to suggest that. They are really interesting and they do have some kind of features that resemble these gray aliens from the lore, but we have to follow the evidence. We can't just like jump the gun, as many people involved in this case have done over the years,
right.
and say, yeah, they're ET. There's no evidence to support that. There's evidence to support that they're crypto-terrestrial, maybe, and that they have tridactyl features, which is really strange.
And define crypto-terrestrial.
Crypto-terrestrial is a species that isn't part of the lore, is one of the hypotheses of what we could be dealing with that are subterranean in nature. And that's why they call them that, because they were found subterraneously. And the place that you visited in Cusco in Peru, there was a discovery there that Tim Alvarino made a little while ago of a tunnel system below all of the sites, all of the megalithic sites. And if these are from there, Presumably, that's where they resided. Presumably,
Okay.
so that's really interesting. That's why they call them crypto terrestrials.
Gotcha. So out of the big ones then, which are the ones that we are more sure are genuine and authentic, at least the vast majority of them. Maybe a couple of them look like that they've been tampered with, but the
Yeah.
majority of the big ones that look to be genuine, unaltered, we know that they carbon date back to between what 1,000 and 1,700 years, basically.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
those are the ones. And a really interesting data point that I think we should mention is that when I was speaking to this craniometry specialist from Argentina, Dr. Celestino Piotti, I've had him on the show like 5 times already. He's the one that he's a physical medical anthropologist. He founded a specialty in Argentina, so he knows his shit. Sorry.
Oh, you're
Um,
good. You're good. You can say whatever
he
you want,
knows
man.
he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And when we've spoken, the first time I ever saw him was at the Mexican hearing with Jaime, and he felt out of place to me when he spoke because everybody was like trying to kind of infer that these were ETs, but when he stood up to the Congress and spoke, he said that based on the cranium measurements that he made on the bodies, both on the big ones and the smaller ones, he believes that these are our descendants from the future. And that really puzzled me. I was like, what the hell? What are you talking about? And that compelled me to just reach out to him and talk to him. And he showed me all the measurements. He wrote a book that I think I sent it to you that we tried to translate. And I'm not 100% on board with what he's saying, but I think it's interesting that somebody with such credentials is having this hypothesis that kind of ties into Michael Masters' hypothesis of future humans.
Right.
And I found that really interesting. And uh, I think that it at least should be investigated, but I don't know if, uh, well, he kind of distanced himself from the whole ET hypothesis when he realized that that's what they were pushing. And because Thierry is not pushing that, but Jaime is kind of.
Okay.
So that, yeah, I can tell you that about that.
Okay. So why do you? I know that you're open to all the possibilities for what they are at this point, right? I mean, until we get genetic testing results, like official genetic testing results, we have to be open to all these possibilities for what these things could be. But why do you kind of shy away from the extraterrestrial possibility as it relates to these? Is there any data that says that that's not what this could be?
It's because of the difference of opinion in the DNA results.
Okay.
Because uh, I've spoken to the ones that think that they are human, and the results of both, out of both, that's the one that confuses me the least. The other one that claims that they have like DNA of even like a bug from who knows when, that's really confusing. And when Jesse asked about it, that really confused him too. We agree on that. So I think that yeah, the crypto terrestrial is the most likely, in my opinion, for now. And this could be like a new type of hominid species that we don't know, that is not known to humanity yet. Um, and this really, what I, the reason I think Dr. Piotti is saying that these are future humans is mainly because the measurements in the cranium are way more inclined towards more evolved species than us, because this guy knows exactly when he's looking at craniums. He knows exactly when he's looking at a Australopithecus, when he's looking at a Homo habilis, when he's looking at a Homo sapiens or variations of that. And when he looked at these, it gave him angles that are way ahead compared to us. And he repeated and repeated the measurements, and he was like, "This is impossible. It should be impossible." The reason I think he still hasn't reached to the crypto terrestrial hypothesis yet is because I think he hasn't entertained the idea that these could be very well a species that evolved before the ice age, before the Younger Dryas impact, which has been talked about recently quite a bit. And there's a possibility that before the Younger Dryas impact, about 12,500 years ago or so,
Yeah, right around there.
uh,
Yep.
there's a possibility that there was another species living above ground, and they went underground when they realized that something was going to happen. And there is a possibility that they were way more evolved than us. Who knows how long they've been here? I mean, technically, Homo sapiens have been around for, what is it, 300,000 years or so?
That's the minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. So who's saying that there wasn't another dominant species before the ice age?
Right.
There's not a lot of information about that. And in mainstream science, they like to say that that's impossible, but the reality is that they don't know really. Nobody really knows.
Right. Right. So we know that these were alive at one point, and the carbon dating has put it. And we know that they're very old, and we know that they have 3 fingers and 3 toes and large heads. Right. So, I mean, the possibilities and the options for what these are. There's only a couple of possibilities, and I think we've talked about what those possibilities are already. But how do we get to next to kind of narrow it down, and what are the next steps? And I mean, it's DNA testing, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And that's got to happen by somebody reputable that comes in and makes the results public, and just openly shares the results, and it needs to
Yep.
be undeniable results. Is that kind of next steps, and where we're going with this? And if so,
Yes.
what's the timing?
That's where Ben Lamb and Mr. Church come in from Harvard, because they are practically the best lab in genomics and DNA testing in the world. So, given that there's this debate in the DNA testing, I think that there needs to be an entity like them to come in and start doing tests. The problem here is the Peruvian government, because they haven't allowed for samples to be taken out of the country yet. And there is an issue there, because if you there shouldn't be an issue, because Colossal, first of all, based on what Jesse told me, they already have some agreements on other species samples with the Peruvian government. So technically, it shouldn't be a problem if they wanted samples from these specimens and take them back to the US. The issue here is, and it gets really tricky here, because historically, the grave robbing and the black market of these remains have been there for about a century or so. So it is not hard to imagine that some parts that are more corrupt from the Peruvian government could be implicated in this black market shenanigans. And it's going to be really telling when somebody approaches them like Colossal, asking for samples, and the government denies them, because that could implicate them in something really illegal, potentially, and corrupt. And
Right.
that's where it gets tricky. And I know that they're already started the process of trying to get the samples legally, but the process just started. We don't know exactly the timeline, and if there's like a negative response, that is gonna take the case into a whole different level, because now we're talking about even potential corruption, which gets really difficult there.
And are these things are like, so a couple of hundred, or how many of them, I guess, in terms of the actual real ones? A couple of them, the big ones, have been tampered with, but how many of the real ones exist right now?
Publicly, I
Yeah.
think that the team that Jaime uh, is working with at Ica University in Peru, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm not part of that effort at all, they have like between 10 and 12 specimens of the big ones.
Okay.
And Thierry has access to about half of those, I think. But when I spoke to everyone, I have interviewed Jaime, I've interviewed Joyce, I've interviewed Thierry himself. They tell me that in the site and still unearthed, there's hundreds.
Okay. And the site is these tunnels, we think, as opposed to this place that the guy brought Jesse and has brought other people into, that little cave that wouldn't fit that wouldn't fit all of them. So I mean, the only possibility, if these things are real, which they do appear to actually be real, I mean, to be like former living beings, the only possibility is, I mean, if they are something, they're either something other than human, or if they're human, then the ancients had one hell of a plastic surgeon back in the day, right?
Yeah. And
I mean,
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
where
and
we're
a
at,
funny
right?
and a really intriguing part of this is that when I was talking to Piotr, and this to his credit, he was the first one that I heard this from. He told me, just think about this, Pavel. Uh, this site that was found had bodies that are carbon dated to 700 years old, 1,000 years old, 1,700 years old, and the giant hands that were found that also were proven to be real. Those are 6,000 plus years old in carbon dating.
I didn't hear about these hands.
Oh
Well,
yeah, that was actually Thierry has a couple of them in Peru. They're like really long, and they're like kind of like claws, and they ran X-rays on them. They ran um, uh, tomographies on them, and the bone, you can see the bone and right through it. And
hmm,
they did carbon date them to 6,000 plus years old. And
wow,
Piotr told me, he was like, think about this, these are carbon dated differently. Who has been putting them there? It's like
right.
there must be like a concerted effort that was organized that placed all of these things in there in different eras in time. What's that about? And it makes a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, well, who's doing that? Uh,
Right.
who knows about this effort that takes millennia, presumably?
Right. Right.
Right? It's puzzling.
It is puzzling. Yeah. So, I mean, your best guess then, in terms of like summarizing this whole situation for everybody, like, I mean, obviously it all exists in possibilities, and there's a handful of possibilities for what this might be, but like, I mean, if you can just summarize your collective thoughts on the entire situation, and in 5 years, or however long it's going to be until we get to the bottom of this thing, like, what's the answer going to be? What are we looking at here?
For now, where I stand is that once the DNA results come in and it's proven that at least the M types are real and they once lived, we could be looking at a new type of hominid that wasn't known before, that is more evolved than us, but is from here. It's not from another place. Um, and if you read the extraterrestrial model from Dr. Michael Masters, he explains in his hypothesis how a lot of the accounts from the contactees and abduction victims, uh, they talk about this morphology of the grays, right? And he theorizes that us humans eventually, based on his anthropology background, eventually we're gonna potentially gonna look like that once all of the if cataclysm happens and we also go underground and all of this, we're gonna eventually evolve or devolve in some cases to something similar to that. So I think that it's possible that these beings, whatever they were, they're from here, and they do seem to be a type of hominid that once in the past, in the very distant past, looked like us.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah. Yeah, you think about like why would we move to three fingers in, whatever, however many thousands of years from now? Like what would why would we drop the two digits? I guess it's the thumb and the pinky, probably. So we're walking around like this.
Yeah.
We got extended fingers. I mean, all we do today, of course, is just, we really don't need all five fingers for our iPhones to tap our, to for
Yeah.
typing, but you think about like the evolution of humanity, and what it might make sense. Why would we, our head size increasing, obviously, we're getting smarter, our fingers dropping off and our toes dropping off. That one I don't have a great reason for, but any thoughts there?
Yeah. If you think about it, think about ESP and all the investigation that goes into ESP.
Yeah.
I am, my channel is called Psicoactivo because of that, because some of the things that I experienced personally, is the only thing that I can say that I know it's real, which is psi phenomenon. And
Hmm.
if this type of ability or skill of ESP has been suppressed, and we rediscover it, the only natural uh, explanation to that is that we're eventually going to grow parts of our brain that are helping us um, survive in the environment that is around us. And one of the really interesting data points here is Dr. Gary Nolan's investigation into the caudate putamen, because he found a piece of tissue in experiencers and contactees and people who have had contact with UAP that is larger than other types of other humans. And he initially thought that that tissue was potentially cancer, but he found out that it was living tissue and that it had nothing to do with any type of disease or anything. And people with larger intuition and even ESP abilities, according to Dr. Nolan, they seem to have this part of the brain more with more tissue than other people. So I think that could be a viable explanation to why we no longer need fingers and we do need the brain if we do have ESP abilities.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And then what about the exotic metal that was found, like on the back of the was it on the back of the skull of a handful
Yeah,
of these things? And how,
and the little bodies, the ones that I'm not sure they're real. There was also found in their hands some of this metal, and
mm,
there was a test that was run to one of these bodies where they put like a device that catches electromagnetic pulses, and it moved the needle. So potentially it could be emitting some type of frequency that we don't know what it is, and that really puzzled me. So and it's osmium. Osmium is really rare.
it's
And
really rare.
yeah,
Yeah, like you're not gonna, as a grave rob, as like a hoaxer, nobody can afford that. Like to get
nope.
that's gonna be way more valuable than whatever you're gonna get for selling these bodies. To give away an exotic metal like that, I mean, there's like something like I don't know, like 2,000 pounds of it that's mined every year. I mean, like
Yeah,
globally. So I mean, it's I don't know what the price per ounce is, but it's got to be in the millions of dollars, you would think.
yeah,
So yeah, that was weird. That was weird for me to find that on, and it was kind of, was it on the back of the skull of the
yeah.
individual?
Like
Yeah,
yeah, like below the cerebellum, in the cerebellum area, right below it,
right.
right
And,
there.
and was it at a slight angle, almost like kind of
Yeah,
wrapping around the back of it? So I mean,
yeah,
could that be something where, if your theory about ESP and communicating telepathically, could those signals be bouncing off the back of that, and then somehow pointed towards a certain point in the brain based on the conical shape of the metal? It's total
yeah.
speculation, but
That's actually good speculation there.
yeah,
I hadn't thought of that. And it could also be something that could potentially even enhance whatever ESP abilities they might
right.
have had.
Yep,
It's
that would be the purpose of doing it. Yeah, I mean, if that was even a thing, like, could it be pointing something that whatever signals, Schumann resonance signals, or just ESP that was coming from some other entity? If you're trying to enhance or grow that portion of your brain, if you're able to kind of take all those signals and direct them to a specific part of your brain, then maybe that was something that they had figured out as a way to enhance their ability, or to make their ability easier, or to grow that part of the brain over generations, or whatever.
yeah,
So I don't know, but that was weird. The metal part, that was weird, because it doesn't make any
yes.
sense. If this is like a hoax, then there's no financial incentive for
Yeah,
that.
if it's a hoax and it's used in the black market, why did you leave those in?
Right.
Why didn't you take it out and sell it for millions of dollars? It makes no
Right.
sense.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah,
that metal wasn't even discovered in the Americas until like 150 years ago or something like
yeah,
that, or it wasn't in the Americas, and these things are over 1,000 years old. So What?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of the story, right? That's the situation. That's where we're at right now. So we need DNA testing as a next step. I mean, any other final thoughts on this one before we close this out?
Yeah, just something that pisses me off though, is that people that are like took on that first debunk and ran with it have been running with it, and it's known UFO researchers in the field that are listened to by a lot of people, and they're like accessories to misinformation by continuing to peddle that first debunk that happened. And
Right.
they refuse to speak directly to the scientists who are risking their careers and their names and their reputations to investigate this earnestly. And I think that's a really awful thing to do, when, yeah, pretty much every scientist who has looked at this has stated these seem to be real. These seem to be have lived in the past. And I just want to like send a message to tell them that they need to be more honest about this case specifically, because they're conflating whatever this case is to something that is very real and it is happening, which is the black market and grave robbing and the violation of cultural heritage from the region, which is very real and it is happening. And we should fight against it. That's no mistake. Make no mistake about that. But you can't conflate one thing with the other. They're different things.
Right. Right. Yeah, it makes total sense. It's hard for people to say, oops, you know, it's hard for people to say I
Yeah.
was wrong or I wasn't, you know, I was confused. Like people can't admit that. So, you know, the only if you can't admit that, then the only option that you have is to continue forward and not, you know, change your mind and not readdress the situation. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's just kind of the state of things, and it's going to slow down progress probably. But it seems like now, especially with the Jesse Michaels, I mean, there's a lot of momentum for people to understand this and to dive into this, and those people are going to get left behind. And so, I mean, I think the momentum on this is definitely heading in the right direction to find out what is the truth, what is actually going on here. So,
Yep.
no, I appreciate it because you've been on this thing for, like you said, 3 years, and there's never, I mean, you've always been like, this is not dead. And, you know, I remember when we met and I talked to you, like, this is not debunked. There's something here, and we need
Yep.
to look into this and really, you know, try to figure it out. And now I think more people are catching up to the fact that you were right. You've been on this thing for a long time. So I appreciate your, regardless of the debunkers and the detractors, to stick with what you know is right is super admirable and cool. So I appreciate your
I
work on this.
appreciate it, Matt. Thank you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, cool, man. I think that's a fantastic clip for my first clip on the Limitless channel, and I'll share that all over the place. But you know, as long as I got you, is there any other topic or anything that's on your mind that you feel like is worthy of discussion?
Yeah, I saw you sharing something about it getting really cold eventually, and that usually sends people spiraling out and like being getting afraid of things. So, what kind of information do you think there is to support that something may happen in the near future that makes it really cold there?
Yeah, that was a great conversation. I learned a lot from the comments after that tweet. You know, I mean, and all I was looking at was just historical data. And if you go back 800,000 years and you look at the charts, it's, you know, you're up and then you're down, and then you kind of build yourself back up to a high temperature and high sea level, and then it drops, and, you know, low temperature, low sea level, and that's been the cycle, and it's repeated, I don't know, 10 times in the last 800,000 years. And right now we are at the very top of that same cycle. And so if you just compare it to the last 10 times that's happened, well, the next thing is really, really cold. You know, I mean, that
Yeah,
is, you know, that's the drop. We're at that time period, and you can plug in the historical chart into AI, and it'll tell you, if you're just looking at this data, yes, in the next 10,000 years, we're going to have significant temperature drops, you know, and even starting,
yeah,
it should be any time now that the temperature starts to drop. So what I didn't contemplate was that there's this whole two-sided climate war, with people who are, and it's like the oil people and the Republicans and the Democrats, they all have these different perspectives just based on, politics. I wasn't thinking about politics at all because I'm not political at all. I was just thinking about history. But what I did learn through some of the comments was that CO2 is different than it has been for the last 800,000 years. So CO2 is higher. I mean, if you go back before 800,000 years, there's been times when CO2 has been, way higher than it is today, like 1,500 parts per million, 1,900 parts per million. We're at like, I forget, I think 500 or 4 something or something like that. So, but CO2 has really spiked, and a lot of people think that is going to maintain high temperatures, and that we won't see this decrease back to ice age like temperatures, and so. I don't know. There's a conversation to be had there. There's a debate to be had there. I think if we're talking about something that's on the scale of, we say soon, but that's geological time. So soon, might be 1,000
years.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking about CO2 levels maintaining where they are today for 1,000 years, that's a different story than if they skyrocket up to 2,000 parts per million for the next 1,000 years. I mean, we've got to assume that our civilization is going to last for 1,000 years. If it doesn't, if the power grids go off for whatever reason, then I think there's a much more likely chance that we do drop down into cold temperatures, because again, the CO2 will stop burning as much. So there's a debate there. There's a question there. I don't know which is what's going to happen. I think it depends on a lot of things. It depends on what happens with our civilization. But if you're just looking at historical data, it's going to get cold soon, and that's kind of what I was looking at. So
have you built a bunker or something like that?
I don't have a bunker because I live in Florida. I tried to build a bunker at my house, and it's got to be underground or else it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But you can't. I'm so low on the water table that I'm screwed. The only thing I could think of was like a helicopter or something to go. If there's a tsunami or something, I can get above it. But I'm screwed. I'm good, man. I've had a good life. It's been real. So.
Yeah. It's been real. We'll be fine, dude. It's just I guess all the conflict is the only thing that really worries me right now. It's but the other things, non-human intelligence potentially being revealed. There's just Ana Paulina Luna was just on Rogan saying a bunch of crazy stuff. You might want to check that out after we stop here.
Okay.
I'm gonna check that out. But I don't know. The politics of it all really tires me sometimes. And I know why you're apolitical in all of this, as you should be, man. It's I think that's what could mess us up royally.
Yep. That's what causes the division, the fighting, and everybody's fighting with each other over their parties. And I used to be political, but just dropped it about, I don't know. Within the last 5 to 10 years, I kind of slowly dropped it, and now I just have zero interest in anything political or any politicians. So we'll never talk about that or have any political guests on my show.
Good man.
Yeah.
That's a smart move.
Yep. But well, good, man. Yeah, it's been great to chat with you. I mean, I had the Blitch episode, which again, I was mind blowing for sure with the Mars conversation, and
that was crazy.
Yeah. Brandenburg's thoughts on that are, of course, wild. And it makes you really think, about the possibilities for what happened there. But I look forward to continuing to investigate that one.
Yep.
But for sure. Well, good, man. It's been great to catch up with you. I think this will be a fantastic first clip for the channel. So I really appreciate it, and wanted to bring some clarity to the audience. And it's been too long since we've touched base. So I wanted to connect with you.
Thank you for having me, Matt.